Amen, amen. You may be seated. So we've been talking as we talked about on New Year's Eve, this particular season, 2019, the Lord is sending his fire, and he's expecting us to catch fire. And so we talked last week specifically about being children of light out of Ephesians chapter 5. And that you and I now, we understand based upon antiquity that lights in Jesus' day were not candles, they were not electricity, they were not headlamps. They really were lamps that consisted of fire and oil. And so what the Lord has impressed upon us is that we have this charge that we in turn be this light, that light to the world. That and Jesus said that we are the light of the world, that we can't be hid. Nobody hides light. So we indeed have to go into the world and be the light of the world. And as we understand and know, based upon all the darkness we see, they waiting on us. And so we have to be busy about what the Lord is calling us to do. And so as we come to understand this idea of children of light, we talked about this last week, that fire and oil were used to light the lamp, and what we understood of fire based upon what we've been talking about. Fire, of course, there's three elements that create fire: energy, some type of accelerant, if you will. There's also oxygen or air, and the third part that lights fire. We talked about fuel. We talked about kind of when spiritually we refer to as fuel as passion, our zeal for the Lord, the things of God. We talked about this energy or the fuel or energy as the accelerant of fire, our energy, our effort, our passion and effort connected to the Spirit of God, the wind, the air of the Lord would start the fire. But the oil, which we talked about last week, is the anointing of the Holy Spirit, which causes two things: impartation, and it's also this impartation comes with an endowment. So we're imparting the virtue of God and the holiness of God, but also endowing the believer with the gifts of the Holy Spirit so that indeed they can operate as God would have them to do. So us walking as this fire and oil mixture to light the world helps us achieve the destiny, the purposes, the plan, the will of God for our lives. And so as we start to look at this, us being children of light, in other words, the characteristics that we ought to demonstrate as being children of light, is that this makes us distinct from all the world around us. That you and I have the virtue and the holiness of God, as well as the gifting of the Holy Spirit, to make us distinct in the earth realm and draw people to Jesus based upon us being the light that we're supposed to be. We talked last week that some of us don't really have our lights working as they should, and we went through Ephesians chapter 5 and kind of dealt with that. So today we shift gears a little bit. I want to give you some more practical explanation of this idea of children of light, because what is evident to us, and what you cannot argue with throughout the whole scripture, is that you and I have a responsibility to show forth what it means to worship God to the rest of mankind.
All right.
That as those of us who name the name of Jesus, we have the responsibility of bringing people into the knowledge of Jesus. That it ain't just enough for us to worship, but we got to make an avenue for other people to come in and worship too. And so as children of the light, and what God is asking us to catch this fire, and that he's sending this fire for us to catch fire, to be able to walk into places and set fires so that people can come to know Christ. And that's really what it's about. I told you that I want to be an arsonist, that I walk around setting fires.
Right.
And what God wants us to do is set the fire of God in the hearts of men so that they will declare, what must I do to be saved? All right, come on. And so we come to this passage of scripture in Luke chapter 6 and 8 when it talks about the children of the light. And Jesus says something particular that kind of messed me up a little bit, and I have to just read it. He says, in verse 8, he says, and the Lord commended the unjust steward, because he had done wisely. For the children of this world are in their generation wiser than the children of light. So Jesus says to his disciples, remember, we go back to verse 1, he's talking to the disciples. He says, the people of the world are wiser than the children of light. And I have to tell you, I was a little taken aback by that because we know that God's wisdom is only wisdom. So how could the foolish in the world operate in a better capacity than the children of light? And so I'm so glad you asked. I'm here to lay it out for you. So watch this now. So for you to understand past the Luke chapter 16 and 8, I've got to kind of give you the whole context of this particular passage of scripture, which is in Luke chapter 16, verses 1 through 13. So let's kind of walk through them. And I want you to kind of get this picture. First of all, what you know of this particular passage of scripture, this particular parable is in no other passage of scripture other than Luke. It's not in Mark, it's not in John, it's not in Matthew, and so this is the only one. Luke is the only one that writes this particular parable. And remember now, we talked about parables when we talked about Matthew chapter 13. We walked through Jesus' 7 kingdom parables. So here now is another parable for the kingdom citizens. And watch it in verse 1. He says, and he said also unto his disciples. So he's not talking to just everybody. And it's important that you know that because many people come into the church house, but God ain't speaking to you. He's not speaking to you because you have not accepted him as the word. You have not accepted him as truth. You've not accepted him as Lord, so he ain't talking to you. Okay. He says here now, his disciples. He's turned to his disciples. And interestingly, the parallel between this passage of scripture in chapter 16, verses 1 through 13, and the close of chapter 15 is the prodigal son. And now here we understand and know that the prodigal son shows us what it means to waste goods of God. But now, to the disciples, because the church folk is easy to point out other folk who waste God's goods. Right. We quick to point out what the world ain't doing, but we fail to realize what the disciples of Jesus ain't doing. Right. And what Jesus says is, listen, if you're going to be a kingdom citizen, you got to recognize there has to be some stewardship over what God has given you. All right? Yes, Lord, I'm in the right place. Watch this now. He says to his disciples, he says that a certain rich man which had a steward. So now, before we get deep into this, I want you to recognize who the players are. The first player that he mentions is the rich man. The second player that he references is the steward. He says, and the same was accused unto him that he had wasted his goods. So watch this out. The steward of the rich man was being accused of what you and I must understand is embezzlement. Embezzlement. Let me help you. The word embezzlement, we know embezzlement because we hear about it all the time. It is theft or misappropriation of funds placed in one's trust or belong to one's employer. So watch this now. The steward, what we know of stewardship, the stewards don't manage their own stuff, they manage somebody else's stuff. And this particular steward was put in a position to manage the rich man's stuff. But this particular steward either misappropriated or stole what was his master. All right. Glory. So watch this now. So when the master, watch what he says. He says, the master found out that he was wasting his goods. Yeah. Glory. So in verse 3 it says, then the steward said within himself, what shall I do? So watch this now. The master come to find out that this particular steward had wasted his goods. Now, I don't know about you, but if you found that somebody stole from you or took some of your money and put it places that it should not be, I think you would more than just fire them. You probably should prosecute them and throw them in prison. You might want repercussions. You might want reparations. I want all back what you wasted, what you gave away. I want it all back. But the rich man just says, I'm gonna fire you. I'm gonna replace you. And so, since I'm replacing you, I need to know, give an account of your stewardship. And what we must understand, in stewardship, you are required to give an account. If you're given something for management of somebody else, there ought to be some time where they come to say, okay, how are you using my stuff? What are you doing with my stuff? Why are you doing this and not with this? I said to do this with my stuff. Do you match what I said to do with my stuff? How come my stuff is over here, but you got it where it's not supposed to be? That we must understand as stewards, there is some accountability that has to be made. Watch this. Verse 3. The steward said to himself, what am I going to do? Oh my God, I'm finna lose my stewardship ability. I'm finna lose my position. I'm finna lose the blessings that I have acquired based upon me being the steward. So now I got to figure out. In other words, he had to make a long-term plan. He had to figure something out. And he couldn't wait. He had to do it. Watch. He says, for the Lord taking away the steward of me, I can't dig. If I beg, I can say, in other words, I'm in the position now that I can't go back to digging. I can't do physical labor. I'm at this place now where I'm managing. I can't go back to the physical labor. And to be honest, I'm really too proud to beg. So I got to figure something else out. Verse 4. And I resolved what to do. That when I put them put out of the stewardship, that they may receive me into their houses. So watch this now. My boss is going to fire me, but I need to find some friends. My boss is going to put me out, My boss is going to put me out, but I got to have somewhere to go. And so I've got to do some short-term stuff, and I've got to change some of my short-term goals so I can have a better plan for the future. In other words, I've got to make some short-term sacrifices so that I can get some long-term reward. So watch this now. He says, so he called every one of his Lord debtors. So watch this now. So the players are the rich man, the steward, and the Lord's debtors. And he called all of them. He didn't call some of them. He called all of the Lord's debtors. Oh, God, this is so good. I didn't even see that this morning. Thank you, Holy Ghost. So watch this now. He says, so when he called every one of his Lord's debtors, he said unto them, and he said unto the first, how much thou owest the Lord? Thou my Lord. And in verse 6, he said unto 100 measures of oil. And he said unto them, take thy bill, and sit down quickly, write 50. Then said he to another, how much owest thou? And he said 100 measures of wheat. And when he said unto him, take thy bill, and write 4 squares. So watch this out. The servant says, okay, my master's going to fire me. I can't help him. I got to make some sacrifices. I can't do nothing for my master to win his good graces because time is up. So instead of me doing some short-term gains for me, I'm instead going to take some short-term sacrifices so that indeed I can have a long-term plan. Because I want them to receive me once I lose my stewardship. And so what I do is I negotiate. Watch this now. He shows what we understand and know as prudence. He shows prudence. By doing this, by prudence, what we understand and know of prudence, when I'm talking about prudence, we're talking about this idea now of using wisdom, judgment, and common sense. So watch this now. The steward says, listen, I'm finna come up short, so I got to do something. And so he uses judgment, wisdom, and common sense. Not only does he use judgment, and common sense, watch this now. He also acts quickly. He's decisive. He's self-collected. In other words, he don't panic. He does exactly what he needs to do to get what he needs done. Mm-hmm. He also has energy. And lastly, he uses what I want to call, what the definition of is tact. Watch this. When I talk about tact, I'm talking about he's sensitive. He's sensitive to the needs of those people who he wants to be friends with. Jesus, that's good. That's good teaching. Thank you, Holy Ghost. The second one, discernment. He knows exactly how to get in with who he needs to get in with in order to have a place long term. He uses diplomacy. He ain't rude. He ain't belligerent. He ain't talking to them sideways out their neck. He asks them very plainly, very clearly. He talks to them with diplomacy. Fourth thing that he does, he uses discretion. First of all, he called them all, but he talks to each one of them individually. Oh, God, I wish you could hear me this morning. So watch this now. We see that this particular servant, through verses 5, 6, and 7, demonstrated these qualities. So then we get to verse 8. Watch what Jesus says. And the Lord commended the unjust steward because he had done wisely. So now watch this. This is where people get messed up with this particular passage of scripture. Because the first thing we say is, wait a minute, how can you commend the unjust servant? Because he lied, he deceived, he stole even more from his master on the way out. So how in the world can you commend this man because he's so unjust? Watch what Jesus says in the close of verse 8. For the children of this world are in their generation wiser than the children of light. So watch this now. Jesus is not commending what the man did according to being unjust. He's commending that the man made a plan for a long-term reward. Oh, glory. So the issue, yes, he was unjust, but the world, watch this now. What Jesus is saying to us here is that the world will bust everything open, press in so hard, go to great lengths for lies. They'll go to great lengths for stuff that don't matter. The world will believe a lie quicker than the truth. They'll put all their eggs in that one basket. They'll smoke themselves dead. They'll party till they dead, all for a lie. But believers don't put passion in godly stuff at all. And so he says, the children of this world are wiser than the children of light. In other words, the world will bust hell wide open, but the children of God will not bust heaven wide open. We got all the power and the resources that we could ever want, and we sit down on God, we lackadaisical on God, we give God half part, but not nothing at all that he wants, and expect God to move. So Jesus said the children of light are stupid compared to the world, because we don't press into the things like the world does. The world goes after money, and they lose their mind, they'll throw away their family, they'll throw away their health, all for the money. But the people of God who love God, who got Jesus, will not throw away nothing for him. And expect God to move. That's crazy. Children of light are stupid if they behave that way. Ooh, okay. All right. Okay, Pastor, hold on. Since it's a parable, you know, heavenly story, earthly application, right? So it's a spiritual truth in it. It's a cast alongside. So watch this now. Let's go back. Check verse 1. And he says unto his disciples, that's the children of the kingdom. That's you and me. That's those of us who name the name of Jesus. Those of us who call Jesus our Lord and Savior. This is who we're talking to. We the stupid folk. I don't think you've heard me. We the stupid folk. In verse 8. Because we're dumber than the children of the world. Well, why are we dumber than the children of the world? I'm so glad you asked. There's a certain rich man. So remember I talked about the players. There's the rich man, the steward, and the man's debtors. Who's the rich man? Church. It ain't a trick question. Who's the rich man? God is the rich man. So now, the rich man has given stewardship to somebody. Jesus. The rich man, the one that owns the cattle on 1,000 hills, the Lord who owns all the earth and the fullness and everything that dwells therein. That rich man has given stewardship to somebody. And the steward has been found unfaithful. Watch what the text says. It says, and the same was accused unto him that he had wasted his goods. So God has given stewardship. And they've wasted his goods. This is what I call spiritual embezzlement. Glory, what is spiritual embezzlement? It's the same thing. It's taking funds and theft or misappropriation of the funds placed in one's trust or belongings to one's employer. So watch this now. We as people have been negligent with God's stuff. Yeah, it's quiet, but I know we're in the right place. We have been faithless with God's stuff. God, the rich man, and I don't know about you, but my daddy is rich. And in fact, if I really look at it, he's blessed me with so much, I'm rich too. I got more than enough. And we so busy crying about what we don't got, what we can't do, instead of trusting the one who is rich in everything. We're not faithful to him. We don't honor him. What he's given us, we spend it any other way. We either steal it or misappropriate it. It's called spiritual embezzlement. That's what the parable is teaching against. That the children of light are stupid because they embezzle spiritually. Because they don't spend their money like they should. They don't spend their resources like they should. They don't spend their time, talent, temple, and treasure like God has established for them to. So they're spiritually embezzling. Jesus, he says, you spiritually embezzled. You taking the money God gave you and robbed him. All right. Well, how have we robbed you, God? Malachi 3 and 10. Tithes and offerings. We don't give God what we're supposed to. All right. We give God whatever. All right. And think that's okay. That's spiritual embezzlement. Right. That's theft or misappropriation. Right. And watch this now. Going back to the prodigal. He's spending stuff on drugs, whores, and drinking. And at the church, we quick to condemn those folk in the world that spend their money on whores, on drinks, and drugs. Yeah. But yet when we spend our money on cars, clothes, and cable, we think we're different. No. You give board, water, light, cable, whatever, all your money instead of putting them where they belong, and that's in the kingdom. You miss misappropriating God's money. You're misappropriating God's resources. You're misappropriating all the things that God has given you. And in case you didn't know, everything you got belongs to God. Scripture teaches us that all things, everything, all things belong to Him. Everything in the earth that dwell in, the fullness, all belongs to God. So although it's in your hand, you're just a steward. And I think if it's time for your accounting, I think you'd have to question whether you've been faithful in what God's given you. And I know the example, the articulation here is financial. And in our world, finances is a really big tool. And we'll talk about it a little bit, but watch this now. You don't just misappropriate your money. You misappropriate your time. You misappropriate or steal your temple. You also misappropriate your talents. Remember, that's what we teach here: time, talent, temple, and treasure. They all belong to God. So when you steal your time from God, when you steal your temple from God, in other words, you give it to something other than God, that's theft or misappropriation. That's spiritual embezzlement. Stop stealing from God. Stop misappropriating God's stuff. You need to check in with God to see where He wants you to go. Last week we talked about calling on the Holy Spirit, following His direction. But watch this now, it gets deeper than that. Because watch this now, He says, you can no longer be steward. In other words, what you and I must understand, and again, this is spiritual truth, everybody's going to die. There's going to be a day where the stewardship that you've been given comes to an end. And here's the beauty of this particular passage of scripture that the Lord dropped on me just a few minutes ago. What you and I understand, when we come into the knowledge of Christ, we realize how unfaithful we have been to God and the things of God. So we recognize our stewardship is now out of order. And so once I come into the knowledge of God, I recognize I got some stewardship that I got to get in order. But unfortunately, too many of us are too afraid to get our stewardship in order because our flesh wins every time. Wow. He says, you can't be no steward no more. No. You done messed my money up. You done messed my money up. Gee, God is saying, you done messed my money up. And so now, you can't be no steward no more. You done messed my time up. You done messed my temple up. You done messing up my talents. All of that stuff you done wasted on everything other than me. Guess what? You can't be no steward no more. And so now watch this. Then the steward said within himself, what shall I do? For my Lord taketh away the stewardship from me. I can't dig. I can't go back. And as a child of God, what I must understand is I cannot go back. I can only move forward. So whatever level I'm operating in now, I've got to forsake it for what new comes. I've got to forsake my place of faith, my place of trust, and go into a greater dimension, a greater level. I know we've been talking about it for months, but the truth of the matter is, until you step out further, God can't release to you what He wants to. All right, come on. That's right. You don't believe me. Wait till we get to verse 9, 10, 11, and 12, 13. I'll make it very plain. So watch this now. He says, I can't dig. I can't go back. And child of God, you can't go back. You can only go forward. So stop tripping, stop crying, stop making excuses, and start moving forward. All right. Woo, he says, okay, all right, I can't dig, and I'm too proud to beg. Come on. And you've gotten to the place where you can't beg nobody no more. Jesus. You're looking for handouts. That's not how this thing works. You need to take some accountability and responsibility for yourself and start operating as God called you to operate. You can't beg your way through this. And the unjust steward, I can't beg. No. As much as I need people to help me, as much as I need some help, begging is not going to get me through this. I've got to learn to stand on my own too. And so he goes on to say, watch this now. He says in verse 4, he says, I resolve what to do when I put out the stewardship, that I never see me in their houses. So watch this now. He makes short-term sacrifices for long-term goals. So child of God, you need to make some short-term sacrifices for long-term goals. And here, watch this now. What you must understand is that what Jesus is referencing here is his disciples, and they're spent in the kingdom. All right. So watch this now. I make short-term sacrifices for the long-term goals of the kingdom. Not my goals, but the long-term goals of the kingdom. And the only long-term goal is the kingdom is that the gospel is preached over the whole earth. So my short-term sacrifices ought to help bring in the gospel being preached.
All right.
Oh, glory, I love the word. He says, I got to sacrifice some stuff short-term to produce long-term reward. How many of us make sacrifices for God's kingdom to go forward?
Oh.
Time, talent, temple, treasure. How many of us wake up in the morning, God, how can I expand your kingdom today? What can I do to move your kingdom forward? What can I do to build up your church? What can I do to make you manifest in the earth realm to people who don't know you? That's the type of sacrifice. That's the long-term reward that Jesus is asking them to put up.
All right.
But too many people who call themselves children of the kingdom don't think nothing about the kingdom. They just think, oh, what is in it for me? So he says, I know what I'll do. I'll work out some short-term sacrifices to make some long-term rewards so that I'll be received in their houses after I'm put away in the stewardship. Watch this. He says that we may receive me in their houses. So watch this now. Spiritually now, get this. What God is saying here to his disciples is, listen, you need to make short-term sacrifices for the greater good of the kingdom so that when you are put out of your stewardship, in other words, when you die, you're received in heaven, and there's a host of people that can say, thank you for getting me here too.
All right.
Glory. So you can receive in their habitation. You think I'm off, but yeah, you got to read the text. The truth of this particular parable is that what you and I must understand is our resources have to be used for kingdom expansion. Period. No caveats, no excuses, no asterisks, no nothing. That's the responsibility. So that indeed God gets glory as the kingdom is expanded. And when we talk about kingdom, we're not just talking about church, but that is where the kingdom starts. But we're talking about in all of Christendom. Not only church gets expanded, but also the ministry and the mission of Christ, the gospel, gets go outside of the four walls of the church and into the streets, into the highways and hedges. That the whole city knows Jesus, or at least heard of Jesus, or has made their decision whether they're going to serve him or not. 76,000 people in the city don't know Jesus. Now a lot of work to do. But watch this question. He goes on, verse 5. So he called every one of his Lord's debtors. Oh my God. Who are the Lord's debtors? Who are the Lord's debtors? If the children of the kingdom are the stewards, and God is indeed the rich man, who is the debtors? Lost souls, you're right. Go with me, Romans, quick, Romans chapter 8. Watch this now. This, glory. Romans chapter 8. Romans chapter 8. Now, I'm going to start reading in verse 12. But you got to get this. You got to get this. Watch this now. In verse 12. Now, in context, Romans chapter 8 is talking about walking by the Spirit. In fact, verse 1. Therefore, there's no condemnation to those who walk in the Spirit and not according to the flesh. That's Romans 1. You know what? Okay. So watch this. Verse 12. Romans 8:1, verse 12 is where I'm at. Therefore, brethren, we are debtors, not to the flesh, to live after the flesh. For if we live after the flesh, ye shall die. But if we through the Spirit do mortify the deeds of the body, we shall live. So watch this now. People who come into the kingdom are indeed these debtors. So we as people already in the kingdom are the stewards. But those people who are trying to come in or should be invited in are indeed the debtors. Right. The debt is that we ought to live to God through the Spirit and not in the flesh. But too many of us, based upon the way we feel, our emotions, whether we want to get along with everybody or not, choose not to do what God said do and expect him to move, but he can't because we haven't indeed embraced our debt. All right. Because we owe it. Yeah, Jesus paid it off, but you still owe. Right. You owe to live by the Spirit. It's life for life. It's his death for your death. For you to die naturally so you can live spiritually. All right. So he says, we are the debtors. They are the debtors. The world outside of the church, we are the stewards now. We've been given the heavenly riches in the gospel of Jesus Christ. And now it's up to us to go out and use that based upon our time, temple, talent, and treasure so that stewards as well. But we so busy with us and ours and what we got going on that we can't rightly use what God has given us to go out and expand his kingdom as he commands. Watch this now. So you see how verse 4, 5, 6, and 7 all come together. So then now he says, and the Lord commended the unjust steward. So watch this now. So what the unjust steward demonstrated, again, I'm going to go through it again. Prudence, wisdom. He used wisdom. He used discernment. He used judgment and common sense. So watch this now. We fight about kingdom wisdom, and we in the kingdom. We want to argue what the Bible says instead of following what it says. We apply our own natural wisdom to the Bible and expect it to come out right. No, it don't work that way. The Bible has to be the measure. It has to be the standard. It has to be what indeed we measure our success or failure by. Nothing else. This right here. Not man's decisions, not man's way of doing stuff, but God's way of doing stuff. This is our measure. And so watch this now. The unjust steward used wisdom. He also used judgment. Again, this is how we judge a thing. Based upon the book. I don't judge it based upon my emotions or feelings or what I'm comfortable with or what I'm not. I judge it by the book. And so, not only did he use wisdom, not only did he use judgment, but he also used something called common sense, which ain't really common nowadays. But I submit to you, there is a particular kind of common sense in the kingdom. The common sense in the kingdom says faith without works is dead. The idea or the common sense of the kingdom is with God all things are possible to him that believes. What the common sense of the kingdom says that faith is the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen. If faith is not the order of the day, then it's not kingdom. All right. So it's got to be faith. Yes. It's got to be fullness of faith. It's got to be pressing into faith. It's got to be trusting God at a higher level. Yes. Less of me and more of him. Yes. Kingdom common sense. Through faith we know the worlds were framed by the word of God. Without faith, it is impossible to please God, for you must believe that he is indeed a rewarder of those who diligently seek him. Faith. That's the common sense in the kingdom. I don't operate by what I see. I operate by what I believe. Yes. For we walk by faith, not by sight. But we're so consumed about what we see instead of operating off what we believe. And sometimes I wonder what we really believe. All right. Because if you really believe this book, you would operate like you believe off this book. All right. So he says he used wisdom, judgment, common sense. And watch this now. Not only was he prudent, and child of God, the reason why you're stupid is because you're not prudent. You're not prudent. You don't operate by prudence. You don't operate by godly wisdom, godly judgment, or kingdom common sense. And that's why the devil whoops up on you, and that's why the world looks at you like a fool, because you don't operate as you should. Right. You can't walk in victory and not use the prudence of the kingdom. Right. So not only was he prudent, watch this now. And Jesus is saying, listen, the children of light miss this because they don't operate as the kingdom wants them to operate. The next thing, he said, watch this. Not only did he operate in prudence, he was quick. He was quick. The world is so quick to run after a lie. The church has the truth, and we're so slow to obey God, it ain't even funny. We got to have prophecy, and people speak a word to us, and then give us three miracles, and bless us with a fleece that don't rain on it, and then when we come back, go, now let the fleece be wet. All these other gimmicks we got to use instead of just obeying the book. And God said, listen, you're a fool because you act so slow about the things I've asked you to do. Yes. He was quick. He didn't waste no time. He didn't try to get a committee together to figure out, oh God, what should we do? No. We already got the instructions of God. Let's go. The next thing, not only was he quick, he was decisive. He didn't play. He wasn't distracted. He went straight to do what he felt in his spirit that he should do. And what Jesus is saying is that the children of light need to start doing exactly what the Spirit is pushing them towards. Stop dilly-dallying, having one foot in and one out. Be decisive. If you're going to serve Jesus, unwise. Not only was he quick, not only was he decisive, he was self-collected. He did not panic. And unfortunately, many of us step out of the will of God because we're panicked. We get in a situation, I don't know, where's the money going to come? Okay, well, we got to do this. No. Operate in faith and be patient and watch God move.
All right. That's right.
We get panicked about what ain't happening, and then we get so out of control that we're not collected and calm enough to walk in what God wanted us to walk into. Yet, what you must understand is faith takes time.
Right.
It's not going to happen overnight. In fact, you go through Mark. Mark is the chapter where people see the word immediately all the time. Do you know that all those immediatelys followed a process? The woman had 12 years that she went through. And it said when she touched the hem of his garment, immediately she was healed. What about the 12-year process before the immediately? We so busy to jump process to get to immediately. That's not the will of God. You've got to go through the process. Stop trying to escape it. Walk it out. Trust God. Believe God. Have faith in Him. Do what He asks you to do. And watch Him put all the pieces in the right place. Because that's what the children of the kingdom do. That's what the wise do. They're not indecisive. They follow, they do, they stay committed, they stay on course. Not only, watch this now, not only was he quick, not only was he decisive, not only was he self-collected, it also says he put in energy. He was willing to do exactly what he was moved to do. And what I want you to understand is God is saying to us, you've got to start putting energy and passion into the things that God has asked of you. And you can't start willy-washing, dilly-dallying, and wondering what is going on. No. Start energizing yourself. Be passionate and go for it. Don't wait. God has already commanded. God has already established and prepared. Go for it. Stop waiting. What are you waiting for? Put some energy, put some muscle, put some effort into what God has asked you to do. Jesus, you got truth on your side. People hustle more in the world for stuff than the children of the kingdom do. That is an embarrassment to God.
Yes.
How in the world? You got all of heaven backing you. Well, God, I'm going to wait to see what you do. Well, God, we're going to see how it turned out. Well, God, you called me to do it, but I'm going to wait for the right time. Well, God, you know my heart. God, you know my situation. God, you know what they did to me. You know what I'm going through. Sounds real stupid, don't it? You're talking to the creator of heaven and earth and giving all these excuses on why you can't do what he said. That's retarded. Watch this now, continue. He said not only did he have energy, and not only did he put his effort in, he also had tact. And like I said, sensitivity. He was sensitive to the needs of the people around him. And too many believers walk in this earth and they ain't sensitive to nobody else but them.
That's right.
They don't care about nothing else but them. People who name the name of Jesus don't have nobody outside of their church that they know that they can witness to. That's crazy. It's not, we already got Jesus. Go out and find somebody who don't.
Right.
Be sensitive to the people around you. And trust me, we all move around people who don't know Jesus, who we can witness to. And here's the thing, even the people that we move around and we witness to, there's another group of people that we can go find. But we don't want to sacrifice our time, our talent, our temple, and our treasure to go out and expand the kingdom. And that's all God is asking us to do. Sacrifice, short term. Maybe I can't watch the football game on Saturday. Maybe I need to go somewhere where I can find people that don't know Jesus and say, hey, let me tell you about my Savior. Maybe Sunday after church, after dinner, maybe I also got to do some stuff for the Lord then. Maybe I can't just sit down and relax. Maybe God is pushing on me to do something different. Follow. Stop waiting for somebody to give you a confirming word. When God already told you what to do, just go do it.
All right.
Tact. Watch this now. Tact. Not only was he sensitive, discerning, he understood. He understood. And Jesus says in verse 8, he says, the children of this world are in their generation wiser. In other words, they understood the season in which they were in. And we talked about this. You must understand the season that you're in. We understand the darkness, but we don't want to be responsible for the light to penetrate the darkness.
Right.
We all know that the world is evil. We know everybody's crazy. We already know this, but we don't want to step out of our comfort zone and be the light that they need.
Yes. All right.
Watch this. He goes on. Not only was he sensitive and discerning, he used diplomacy. Bitter saints. Y'all taste real bad. You taste bitter. Bitter saints. People who're supposed to have the joy of the Lord can't talk to people. Always easily offended. They have no diplomacy. Can't talk through nothing. The minute you say something, they're offended. Or the minute you try to reason with them, they don't want to say nothing to you. They don't want to talk to you no more.
Right.
That's not diplomacy. You have to be able to use diplomacy to reach people for the kingdom.
Right.
He says, not only, watch this now, not only was he sensitive, discerning, and diplomatic, he used discretion. He called everybody, but he spoke to them individually. And we as believers, it's not enough just to, hey, come to church. What's going on with you? How you feeling? Well, you know, one of the things we learned in church today is that we need to be responsible for being the light of the world. And one thing that we understand and know that people outside of the church really don't have that light. What are you struggling with and dealing with that I can pray for you about? That's evangelism. That's reaching the kingdom. That's expanding the kingdom. That's sharing the gospel. Doing the work of the gospel. I'm trying to bridge you to Christ.
All right.
I got a whole lot of room to bridge. I got a whole lot of places I can bridge. I got a whole lot of places that I can extend this to. But I've got to be willing to sacrifice short term. My comfort, maybe by somebody that I don't like, might be somebody, a culture or race I don't understand, but I need to cross that bridge and reach across that line to reach and stretch the bridge of Christ over so that indeed they can come in.
All right. Thank you, Father.
I got to be willing to do that short-term sacrifice and not be afraid. Discretion. Not everybody has to get the same word. Some people need a different word. Some people need prayer. Some people need exhortation. Some people need encouragement. Some people need you to come alongside with them for a while. Are you willing to sacrifice in order to do these things? Are you willing? Because those short-term sacrifices equal long-term reward.
That's right. All right.
I can't tell you about how many times people say, well, I prayed for such and so and so for so many years, and then finally they came to know the Lord. Or I witnessed to this person for so long, and then finally, 10 years later, they finally came to the Lord. My husband and I, my husband cheated on me, or my wife cheated on me, and we went through this whole process, but now looking back at it, 10 years later, our marriage is stronger than it was back then. Are you willing to make the short-term sacrifices for the kingdom to be expanded? Because once that marriage is healed, now you got testimony to share with other married people and to let them know, hey, what you're going through is not the end of the world. In fact, God can restore if you let Him.
All right. Yes. Thank you, Lord.
Kingdom expansion. So this is what Jesus says. He says, listen, you must understand, the children of the world are wiser than the children of light. In other words, the children of the world use resources properly. They use them for their stuff. But what the children of the kingdom ought to do is use the resources for the kingdom.
All right.
So now we can get to verse 9. Watch this. And it's 12:11, so I'm getting close to the end. And so now we know how not to be unwise anymore, right? We start using kingdom wisdom. We start using kingdom judgment. We start using kingdom common sense. We start being quick about what God called us to do, right? Yep. We start to be decisive about what God called us to do. Not let distractions distract us. And if it's a distraction, I'm not going to give it my attention. We are self-controlled. We understand that we have the energy. We need to put energy to what God said. And we use tact to reach people for the kingdom. That's what the wise do. And that's what this unjust steward did as an example to the unwise children of light. So stop being unwise and start applying those things to your life regarding expanding the kingdom. Because all of us have that charge.
All right.
1 Corinthians 4:2. Moreover, in stewardship, one must be found faithful. And Jesus is showing here faithfulness in the eyes, through the eyes of an unjust person. That the world will bust the hell wide open, and the children of the kingdom will not do nothing for the kingdom. They will expand it. All they do is me, give, mine. And that's stupid, because you got the light. You are directly connected to the rich man, and you acting like a fool. Connected to the one that got all the money, and you act like you ain't got none. That's retarded. Watch this, I'm going to continue. Verse 9, he says, and I say to you, make to yourselves friends of mammon of unrighteousness, that when ye fail, that you may be received into everlasting habitation. So watch this now. What's unrighteous mammon? M-O-N-E-Y. Money. Money is unrighteous mammon. So watch this now. He says, use unrighteous mammon to make yourself friends so they'll receive you into everlasting habitations. What's the only everlasting habitation that we want to go to? Heaven. So he's saying use your money to help heaven. Chirp, 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 chirp. Your money is used as an unrighteous man. I know we so quick to not try to talk about money in the church, but the truth of the matter is money is a tool in this world that God created so that indeed we can expand his kingdom. Now, we know about giving money to church. That's one aspect. But the things that the church does in response to the call of God to be able to do things for their community, it takes a certain amount of money. And so he says, listen, use unrighteous man so that indeed you make friends or you make people come into the kingdom so that when you come to heaven, you'll be received into that everlasting habitation. You didn't know your money meant that much, did you? You thought you could spend your money whatever way you want, and God knows my heart. That's a lie from the pit of hell. God watches your debit card, your checkbook, your bank account, your saving account, the money you keep in your bra in the sock drawer, the money you give to so-and-so to hold on to for Christmas or whatever. God looks at all that money. Yes. All of it. And if you're not using it to expand the kingdom, you're misappropriating or you're thieving. You're committing spiritual embezzlement. And he says, that makes you foolish. It really makes you unwise. But watch this, goes on in verse 10. He says, he that is faithful in the least is faithful also in much. That he that is unjust in the least is also just in much. So watch this now. Money is the least. So now it reminds me of back in Matthew chapter 23 when Jesus tells the Pharisees, well, you should tithe on your cumin and your herbs and all this other stuff, but you should do that and not forsake the weightier matters of law like righteous judgments and faith. So what I must understand is money is the starting ground. So if I'm not faithful to God with my money, I'm not going to be faithful to God in nothing. Ooh, it's quiet. But that's true. I can tell you the people who work in church, because those are the people that tithe. The people who don't tithe, they don't do nothing. But the people that do, them are the people that hang out. Them are the people that work. Them are the people that have the vested interest. Because they understand that if I'm putting my money in like God asked me to, then there's some other areas that God has asked me to. My time, my talent, and my temple. So watch this now. He goes on. He says, if therefore you have not been faithful in unrighteous mammon, who will commit unto you your trust in true riches? Listen, if you don't get this money thing right, as a child of the light, I can't give you true riches. I can't give you the spiritual blessedness that you really want, that you really need, all the peace and all the joy and the love and having access to God and being able to pray and move heaven and having seen your loved ones come to know Jesus. If you don't get this money thing right, if you don't get this stewardship right, that stuff is not available to you. All right. He says, if I can't trust you with the least, I can't trust you with the money I've given you. How in the world am I going to trust you to call heaven and earth to your command? As a child of God, you're supposed to have that authority, but I can't give you all of that authority because you can't even trust me with the few dimes I give you, the few dollars I have, the few, watch, he goes on and he says, verse 12, and if you not have been faithful in that which is another man's, who shall give you that which is your own? Listen, the blessings of God are the children's bread. They belong to the children of God, to the children of the kingdom. But if I can't be faithful in what's God's, how in the world is he going to give me what I'm supposed to have? Right here in the text. If ye have not been faithful in that which is another man's. We already established whatever you got belongs to God. It don't belong to you. You're just a steward. So all the stuff you got is God's. If you're not faithful with God's stuff, he can't give you your stuff, which is the blessedness, the rewards, all the fullness of your faith in Christ. 13. No servant can serve two masters. For either he'll hate the one and love the other, or else you hold the one and despise another. You can't serve God and man. Listen, there's 4 things I want to drop in your spirit. I had it all preach and everything, but you need to hear this. Watch this. These 4 things. Jesus is telling his disciples in this parable here, as children of the light, you must use your money for kingdom purposes. You must use your money for kingdom purposes. So that means church. That means after you do what you're supposed to do in your church, you might help another ministry or do some type of other missions or whatever the case may be. Tithes and offering belong to your church. You have to make sure you give money to your church, and then also whatever God leads you to do to expand the kingdom. That's why I love going to other churches, because it gives me an opportunity to share. It gives me an opportunity to sow. I love fellowship. I love going to other places because it gives me an opportunity to sow. It also gives me an opportunity to receive. So watch this now. Use money for kingdom purposes, not your own. Watch this. And based on verse 10, this indicates whether you're worthy to enter into heaven. Wait, what? Yes. Look at what he says. He that is faithful in least is faithful in much. He that is unjust in least is also unjust in much. How are you going to be unfaithful to God with your money, but be faithful to God in righteousness? And Jesus said, unless your righteousness exceed the righteousness of the Pharisees, you can't get in. How? You can't do it. It's impossible. So, like I said, it is a demonstration of your worthiness into heaven. And don't get me wrong. It's not faith by works. It's not a salvation by works. It's faith with, or it's salvation with works. In other words, it's evidence to your salvation that you operate with your money the way you're supposed to. The second thing I want to share with you. If you're faithful in handling small amounts of money, then you'll be faithful in handling large amounts of money. Many of us, we don't have money because we're not faithful in the little money we got. We don't tithe, we don't offer, and then we expect God to give us money out of the what? It don't work that way. And here's the thing. So let me be real. How many of y'all think y'all don't have a whole lot of money? Be honest. Be honest. I don't think I got a whole lot. Not no Bill Gates money. Right. Not no Jay-Z money. How many people think, be honest, do you really think you don't have a whole lot of money? No. Yeah, we all think, man, I could always use some more, right? We could always have some more. In 2015, the World Bank does this study on global poverty. 71% of the Earth's population, which at the time in 2015 was 7.3 billion people. 71% of the Earth's population, which is 5.2 billion people, operate on less than $10 a day. So now, how much money do you think you got? Do you know how much $10 a day is annually? $3,650. I get that in a bonus. So when I say I don't think I got a lot of money, I'm lying. If you get Social Security or disability, you make more money than 71% of the people on this planet. In fact, you make what they make in 6 months when it takes them a year to make it. Still think you don't got enough money? You a liar. You got plenty. Because you can spend it on whatever you want. 71% of the world's population lives on less than $10 a day. And I'll put it to you in perspective. Anybody got a bill that's over $300? Car note, lights, gas, insurance, over $300? That one monthly payment is more than people live on for an entire year. Give you a perfect example. My car notes, $343 a month. $343 a month. That's $34 a day. And that's just my car note. That ain't my car insurance. That's not my mortgage. That's not the food I eat. That's not the clothes I wear. That's not the gas I put in the car. That ain't got my utilities. I live on way more than $10 a day. And I submit to you, everybody in this room lives more than $10 a day. And you don't think you got enough money. You're a liar. You got way more money than you could possibly imagine. You just have stewardship issues. Because you don't know how to steward your money. 71% of the world's population as of 3 years ago lives on less than my car note. How dare I tell God I don't got enough? But we unwise. We don't really value what we ought to value. Number 4, or actually that was number 2, right? Number 3. One who cannot be trusted with money cannot be trusted with spiritual riches. It's that simple. You're not going to get the fullness of God until you start managing your money the way the kingdom says to do. One who cannot be trusted with money cannot be trusted with spiritual riches. You don't believe me? Read the text. Luke chapter 16, verses 1 through 13. Tell me Jesus is talking about something other than money. Because he's not. Children of the light, we don't like to talk about money in church. But that's what Jesus talked about to his disciples. Where else are we supposed to talk about it but in the church? But we so busy looking at Facebook memes. What is the black church doing with $400 billion to come in? That's a lie too. But we believe it because it's on Facebook. We look at 1% of the church population, that's the Creflo and TD Jakes. And the other 99%, which is Christ Kingdom Builders and a bunch of the other churches in the United States, and wonder, where all the money? Yeah, we give you all the tithes open. You lie, because you only give us an average of $20 a week. That's the average giving of the people in the United States, $20 a week. How in the world do you expect to do stuff for the kingdom with $20 a week when you spend way more than that on the rest of the stuff? So 4, one who cannot handle the affairs of God cannot manage the affairs of his own. Look what he says, remember? Verse 12, he says, and if you're not faithful in what is another man's, who shall give you what is your own? In other words, if I don't manage God's stuff, in other words, God, the talent he's given me, the time he's given me, the temple he's given me, and the treasure he's given me, then I can't receive the true riches that he really wants to put in my hand. Because he can't trust me. Right. Because I'm a thief, and I misappropriate. I'm an embezzler. Why would I give more to an embezzler? In fact, I'm going to take what the embezzler has and give it to somebody else. All right. So those who I want you to understand this. So as children of light, as we talk about this fire, practical applications of this fire is us using our resources in order to expand the kingdom. Our first resource, time, talent, temple, treasure, those 4 together, we got a whole lot of space to add to the kingdom. And so then we got to take God's direction on how to get it done. And I submit to you that God has told you exactly how to get it done. All right. Ain't no mystery on how to get it done. In fact, every Sunday we talk about how to get it done. All right. When are we going to step out, put energy, be quick and decisive and control about what has been said needs to be done? All right. That's the challenge. That's what God is calling for. He's calling us higher. Amen. To this standard. Amen. To this truth. The children of the world are wiser in their generation than the children of light. Amen. God forbid they'll make that so here. That we recognize and we understand what being prudent to the things of God really is. All right. That we understand and know that we got to be quick, decisive, self-control, operate with tact, discernment, diplomacy, all of these things. Because Jesus says it in Luke chapter 16. If I can't trust you with that, I can't unlock heaven for you. I can't give you the desires of your heart. I can't rain down all that heaven has to offer. If I can't even trust you to manage the resources that I've given you, you can't give me your time, your talent, your temple and treasure on a regular basis. You being lackadaisical and just give me whatever. How in the world is you going to expect heaven to fall down on you? You couldn't handle the weight anyway. You wasted. And I don't know about you, but God don't waste. And so what you and I must understand, no, we are children of the light. So we have access to heaven in an unprecedented way. That you and I can call forth all that heaven has to offer based on our faithfulness to our time, our talent, our temples, and our treasures. That's something to shout about. That's something to be really excited about. But the problem is the reason why we're not excited because it calls us to accountability and responsibility. And quite frankly, we don't want to be responsible because we're stupid. We're foolish. We're unwise. The children of this world are wiser in their generation than the children of light.
All right.
That ought to be an insult.
That's an insult.
That ought to make you feel, I'm going to demonstrate to God much better. Because I know what he's done for me. I know what he's brought me out of. I know what he takes me through. I know what he's done for me. And that's enough for me to be prudent, to be wise, to give him my time, talent, my temple, my treasure. Even the small sacrifices that I do make for long-term reward is enough because I respect all that he's done for me.
Amen.
Jesus.
Thank you.
God has done so much.
Amen.
He's given so graciously. He's been so merciful and kind.
Amen.
What is my time, my talent, my temple, and my treasure that I can't give it to him? That I got excuses why I can't.
Right.
That's unwise. That's unwise. And so as children of light, it's time for us to be wise.
Right.
It's time for us to act like we got all that we have in the kingdom that we say we got, that we sing about, that we tell people about. It's time to put up, ante up, dig in, do the work over and over again, monotonously, until God says otherwise. Because that's the fullness, that's the blessing. If I give him my time, talent, temple, and treasure, that's the least. There are spiritual riches that he's going to abound upon that. We want to see God's glory. We want to see heaven move. We want to see healing and miracles and all this other stuff that God makes available. Well, get this stuff right.
All right.
Get your time, talent, temple, and treasure together so that all those things can happen. God is the same yesterday, today, and forevermore.
Yes.
It can happen in our midst every time we come together.
Yes.
But if we don't get those things together, God is just sitting back there. When you're ready, I'll drop it on you. When you're ready, I'm going to give it. When you do what I ask, you're going to walk into it. I'm telling you. Oh my God. It was such a blessing to do something for the first time. When we did our coat drive, again, I told you this already. And I had no idea. But just saying we was going to do it, then checks started coming in the mail. That was a principle for me to understand. Anytime God asks you to do something, just do it and the resources come. The provision comes. So don't be afraid. Just whatever God said to you, go do it. And the resources come. And the resources follow. But we so busy worried about what we don't have and what we can't do and we don't have enough. That's a lie. We got so much. But we so lazy. We so complacent. We so scared. We so comfortable. Maybe we need an economic collapse here to where we go back to living in huts and having to walk miles for water. So we can begin to appreciate everything that God has blessed us with. People in these countries walk for miles just to go to church.
Yes.
Will sit in a room packed to capacity, standing for hours to hear somebody minister. Ain't got nothing, but they love the Lord, and they do it. We can't even get in our car
Oh, come on.
to drive 20 minutes
Thank you.
to hear the word of the Lord. The children of this world are wiser in their generation than the children of the light.
Come on.
My challenge for you today is real simple. Teach, show, give an example that you ain't like the rest of the children of the light. That you don't operate unwisely. That you use the principles of the unjust steward to demonstrate to the Lord that you are faithful in what he asked you to do.
All right.
That's the challenge. That's what I'm asking you to do. That's what I preach for this hour or 45 minutes or whatever. That's the challenge. Are you up to the challenge? You ain't got to prove to me. You ain't got to tell me. God sees. God witnesses. God knows.
Amen.
I'm doing what I'm supposed to do.
Amen.
I'm doing what I'm called to do.
Yes.
So I'm good. I'm great. But the question becomes, am I going to continue? Am I going to keep doing what God said do? Am I going to trust it if it don't materialize like I want it to? Only time will tell.
Amen.
How faithful we going to be.
Amen.
Only time will tell if we're going to do it, God.
Amen.
But we thank God that he's given us the grace
Yes.
to do it.
Yes.
That he's given us the space, the room, the opportunity.
Yes.
We have so much opportunity.
Yes.
Don't waste it. Don't neglect it. God has been good to you, too good to you to waste your opportunities.
Amen.
God has been too good for you to neglect such a great salvation. God has been too good for you to not share what God has given you.
Amen.
Come on and praise the Lord. I'm done.